We now know, of course, there are other implications beyond Keir Starmer's decision or indecision, however you wish to look at it, at the weekend. Britain, Bahrain, the UAE, Cyprus reportedly criticising the Prime Minister and his response to the Middle East security, feeling the UK's measures were inadequate in protecting the region and British citizens from Iranian missile attacks. He has, of course, I would imagine in his words, in the last 20 minutes, clarified, sending 4 new fighter jets to Qatar and confirming that flights have left Oman. So he says now, don't worry, I'm on it. But of course, when there is a war on, and we are now involved, whatever way you wish to slice it, there is a huge price to pay. And that isn't just the cost of flights and bombs and other military plant that's required. The knock-on effects are huge. Let's get a word from Lord Robert Skidelsky, Crossbench peer. Robert, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Nice to have you with us. War, it's an expensive thing, right? You don't get much change out of a few quid for a war. And, you know, even if you're just sending a few planes and the odd boat, it costs, to coin a phrase, a ton of cash.
It does. And what's more, there's a very little prospect of limiting Britain's involvement. When Keir Starmer says, as you just said, our preparations are purely defensive, our commitment is purely defensive. What he's never said, which is what Macron and France said, and Sanchez of Spain, that this is an illegal war. They said this was an illegal operation by the United States and Israel. But Starmer's never said that. What he said is we won't take part in it, but we will use our forces for purely defensive purposes. But it's almost impossible to make that distinction.
Of course.
Iran was bound to retaliate in the way it could.
Yes.
And British forces were bound to be involved, British personnel, British bases, and so on. So, I mean, the defensive passes to the offensive very quickly.
Well, indeed, and you know, one could reasonably argue that if you're part of the defensive element of it, you're part of it, right? I mean, you're up to your neck in it, the same as anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, we did not take a principled stand against the bombing of Iran, and therefore we had to straddle some middle ground between not taking part in it, but being prepared to get involved if the situation demanded. That's the short of it.
Indeed. In terms of knock-on effects, I mean, there's the obvious stuff. Filling up your car with petrol costs a few more quid now, even though those pesky petrol stations are still using their same supplies, but doesn't stop them notching the price up. Where else do these stories go in terms of the economics of it and what happens, if you like, on Civvy Street?
Well, I mean, the direct effects, of course, will be a big increase in the cost of living, and that will hit Rachel Reeves's programme of recovery. I mean, that's the immediate effect on Britain. It'll also actually have those effects on other European countries. It won't on the United States, because the United States is self-sufficient in oil and gas. But on all the countries that rely on imports, there'll be a price effect. And if the Iranians manage to close the Straits of Hormuz, that'll affect the traffic of oil to Western Europe. So, I mean, those will be effects. But more broadly, what we're seeing is a kind of retreat from a sort of liberal open system into one in which we divide the world into friends and enemies. And economics is constricted into that sort of kind of circle. And that's very bad because, you know, I mean, it's on a liberal world order that we ultimately rely for our prosperity. And if that's cut in half, then there's bound to be big collateral damage to our economy and to the economies, particularly of Europe.
And I guess, you know, this is sort of day one, I mean, day 6, literally, but, you know, the very beginning. We don't yet know whether this is something that's going to be over in a couple of weeks or whether we're in for the long haul. So
the question is, what is American-Israeli endgame here? I think it is to destroy Iran. To destroy any political forces in Iran which might be hostile in future, become an enemy of Israel, and that's impossible. I mean, there are far too many people in Iran who will actually support their government in this situation. If someone was bombing your country, then whatever your feelings about the government, the natural instinct is to rally. And the idea that you can, within a few days, replace the existing regime with someone like the Shah, and install something is a pipe dream. We saw that pipe dream in Iraq, we saw it in Syria, and we saw it in Afghanistan. These interventions, which are designed to be short and sharp and lead to the installation of a democratic regime, ones that supports our values, is just not on. It doesn't happen that way, and it won't happen that way in Iran. And therefore, the prospect is prolonged violence and disorder throughout the Middle East.
Well, does that not rather depend on the appetite of the Iranian people? I mean, certainly, if, to be fair, look, me interviewing a few Iranians who want to see the regime toppled, who support the Americans, that doesn't define perhaps everybody's view, but there does seem to be a real appetite to get rid of, well, we now have got rid of the Supreme Leader, but to get rid of him and all the others and replace him. And it might be a quirk of contemporary life that he's being replaced by somebody whose old man was kicked out in the late 70s. But nonetheless, a change, it seems, is desperately needed and supported. So could you be wrong on this one, Robert?
I mean, my principle is a very general one. If a foreign power starts bombing your country, then whatever you think about the regime, it's not going to be an easy matter to replace it by a regime that has supported the bombing.
Indeed. But it's not any old country, is it? I mean, this is not, the Isle of Wight or, south of France. It's Iran.
If Russia stopped bombing Britain, started bombing Britain, then whatever the political divisions in this country, everyone would rally around. I mean, I'm not saying it's an identical situation because there aren't free elections and all that sort of thing in Iran, but the instinct to defend your country against a foreign foe is deeply embedded in any population.
But indeed, but is there not? It's a bit like sort of international law being seen as, and we spoke to various speakers on this today and have done all week, that there is a different malleability, a flexibility, if you like, in international law compared to domestic law. It doesn't carry the same rigidity in many senses. It's dependent on context, it's dependent on circumstance. And one could create an argument, Robert, that is, look, this is Iran. It's known to be the greatest sponsor of state terrorism anywhere on planet Earth. It is largely responsible for most of the problems in the Middle East, and we'd be better off without it there, because it's not just a threat to Israel, but it's a threat to other countries in that region and the wider world. So it's very much an exceptional case. Does that wash with you?
Yeah, but you can't take international law into your own hands. I mean, that's a contradiction. I mean, international law has not got an enforcing mechanism. The United Nations is not involved in this. Many countries, probably most countries, think the invasion is illegal. And an illegal defense of international law is a contradiction in terms.
But if Israel would say, hang on, no, this is very much a defensive operation from our perspective. People can say whatever they like about Gaza and what has happened there, and that does divide the room. I understand that. But they could construct a reasoned argument that actually Iran is the feeder nation for all of this. Hamas, Hezbollah, and others, Houthis, you name it, all down to Iran. So Israel have a right to defend that position, and America have the right to support Israel.
Well, not all. I mean, I don't think that's right, but that's not international law.
But they wouldn't be breaching international law in that case.
Well, who decides on the breach of international law?
Well, that rather highlights the flexibility issue that I mentioned on international law.
Yeah, reflects the ambiguity. And what's more, on this particular occasion, the attack took place at the moment when Iran and the United States were still in negotiation about their nuclear future. So, I mean, why did it happen at that point? It happened at that point, I think, and this has been admitted by Secretary of State Rubio, because the Israelis planned to attack. And he said the United States had to be part of that to avoid greater destruction. So in a way, what was being said? International law was being proclaimed by Israel, and the United States was supporting it. That's completely contrary to the so-called defense of our homeland, which was the subject of Trump's strategic agenda, where we would defend the interests of the United States. Here we're defending the interests of Israel, which is thought to be exactly the same as the interests of the United States. I mean, to me, the whole thing is, I think the idea of international law here is a distraction, because international law must have a properly recognized enforcing authority, and that isn't the exertions of a single power that proclaims that international law is being broken and demands the right to remedy that situation. That can't be international law.
Final question, Robert. What is your instinct telling you about the longevity of this? I keep referencing Donald Trump's core belief that initially this would be very swift, it would be very quick. Are you sensing that? And quick could mean, a few weeks, or are we, as in the wider world, in for the long haul here?
Well, what's the longevity of the intervention? What was the longevity of the intervention in Iraq, which was expected to be short, in Afghanistan? What's happened is that a shambles has been created, and the repercussions of that go on. Now here, it's much more serious, because the whole of the Middle East is somehow involved in this. How are other countries in the Middle East going to react to the prospect of America claiming the right to intervene whenever something's going on which it doesn't like, or which Israel doesn't like? It could go on a long time, and it will be very destructive, more destructive than already the interventions have been of life in the Middle East. So I don't see it ending quickly. I don't see it being in and out in a few days. It can't be. It's going to be a long haul, and what the end result is going to be is in anyone's it's up to you can't say. All I can say is I feel that the situation is very bleak, and I regret very much that the United States felt it had to do this.
Lord Robert Skidelsky, thank you, sir, for your time. Really appreciate that. He's a crossbench peer. His thoughts, not too enamoured with the initial US response, but we are where we are, as the phrase goes.